Welcome to the Startup Grind.
David, I know you're going to start, but I just want to say something. Did you guys hear about the kidnapping? Well, it's all good because the kid woke up. All right, well, welcome to Startup Grind Buffalo 2.0. This is really great. I'm not sure if this. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Eben, who a lot of you have known, has successfully and happily moved to San Diego, and we are very excited for his next chapter on the West Coast. So it is with great pleasure that David and I are going to be taking over what Eben started here, and it's really, truly an honor to have such a great representation of the entrepreneurship, startup, and genuinely just business community here in Buffalo show up tonight. So on behalf of the Innovation Center, thank you for coming. And David, sorry for interrupting.
No problem. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah!
Woo! All right. So I really wanted to elaborate on the fact that Evan left from Startup Grind, and he really led it through a phase that was that startup, pushing it, moving forward, getting things together to the point where people expected it, and people had something to come for. And what Sean and I would like to do is really expand that into a growth phase where we have the capacity to really focus Startup Grind as a team to really help the Buffalo entrepreneurship ecosystem. And where we see ourselves fitting in is to be kind of the watering hole, that entry point into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, because we have everyone from students all the way to people who have done it before again and again and again coming to those events. And what we would like to do is really refine that so that we can find better and better ways to not only bring people in, but to have a better networking experience where we follow Startup Grind's philosophy of make friends, not connections, and bring you guys together, and then also have a team that follows up afterwards so that we can connect as many people as possible into our ecosystem to build a bigger and better Buffalo. With that, it's really great that Sean and I are working together because it is a two-man team just to coordinate the team that we have together. I'll be focusing a lot on the team and bringing together a lot of those major components around the event itself. And then Sean will be able to tell you some of the other things that we're bringing together.
Well, thank you, David. So I'm going to be focusing a lot on sponsorships. We're going to be bringing forth a number of amazing organizations who are going to be backing our goals here, not only financially but with amazing services like Nickel City, who is recording every single one of these and helping us to document everything. The Martin Group also has been here since the beginning of Startup Grind, and we're excited to welcome them back. Thank you, Kelsey. And we're also assembling an advisory board. So a number of them are here tonight. There's Tom Murdoch, Dave Finicky, John Gavin is not here. Just a very amazing selection of people that represent the entrepreneurial community here in Buffalo are joining us with Startup Grind to help us make the right decisions. This also helps our reach. So, for instance, when 43 North has these amazing visiting judges or speakers or even winners, we're going to be able to capitalize on that and have them do a Startup Grind. So while we are starting locally, and there's nothing wrong with that, we do aim to bring in big, amazing speakers from outside the community. So all of you that spent $10 to be here tonight for beer and pizza and networking, it really goes a long way. So with that, our next speaker is Buffalo's own Bill Maggio. He is the president and CEO of the Jacobs Institute right here on campus. Also IMCO, which is on the third floor. And he's the president of the board of trustees of 43 North this year. So it makes great sense to feature him during 43 North week, which is going to be the first Monday 24th in October. And all the information is right next to the board where it says, what would you ask Bill Maggio? So please write anything that you can. Two other things I want to point out that are in the room tonight. Our collaboration station, where these great-looking gentlemen are sitting right now. So there's two different pads on the table. One of them says, I can help you with, and the other one says, I need help with. If you can fill one out, I'm going to be posting them, and you will all become aware of what is available and how you can become help. The other thing is another board where I'm looking for your input. Has anybody not been to Dig before? Raise your hand if you've never been here before. This is your first time. Awesome. On your seats, I put a Dig for a Day pass. And while Roswell Park is a institution on campus with us, I carry with me the same model that they do. Spend one day with us here. It's a co-working space. There's amazing networking, amazing resources for your business. Spend one day here, and I promise you're going to want to come back. So your first day is on me. You pop out the wrench within the little pass. It's your tool for success. And you just give that to come in, pop that to the wonderful ladies at the front desk, and your first day is on us. Otherwise, it's $100 a month, 24/7 access, and it's a beautiful place to be. A lot of our Dig members are here tonight. Thanks for coming. And it's just one of the perks of these amazing networking events. Not only Start Grind, but Creative Mornings, among many others. We actually just launched an unbelievable educational series too, with so many different offerings for your business. And that's it. So please participate in the different little stations we have here tonight because we really value your input. So with that, I think we're ready to get started, right?
Yep. And to start it off the same way that Evan did, we had a great idea to do the pitches as well. And today, I brought together some co-workers of mine, Aaron Damiano, John Giamondo, and Phil Fullerton, who will be doing a 60-second pitch in which they have to get creative because they can ask for anything except money, and I will cut them off at that 60-second mark. And one moment for me to get through my live stream. A little closer. Nope. Yeah, this would have been 10 per second.
Does it work now?
Yeah. All right. And go.
We can agree that American politics is broken. We lack an effective way of communicating with our representatives. We cannot have a democracy that does not hear the people. We're looking to give people a more involved voice, a direct line to the representatives, even if the representatives, they don't know who they are. Anyone will be able to see any bill the representative sees, broken down into plain English using machine learning. Imagine an app where at the touch of a button, a user can choose a bill or a law that are important to them, vote on those laws, socialize those bills, and then collectively send their votes to their representatives. And then get feedback from how their representatives voted on those bills. We believe that creating a new digital town hall can fundamentally change the way Americans communicate with their government. We can build a more effective and open, transparent government, one where people feel they can make a difference. We are looking for people to help. We want to and who have a passion to revolutionize American politics. So if you're interested, come and talk to one of us.
That's right on time. And through the noise interruptions, no doubt, that was very good. And now for our event of the evening, Zachary, would you join me on stage?
Here we go.
So Zach has spent most of his adult life working on building sustainable businesses in Buffalo and has plans to continue to do so and also build a better collaborative Buffalo as well, which you'll hear about a little later. He's currently the partner at 15 Fingers and CMS Group, and I have to look down because he's got a lot going on. The founder of Ruse Pierogies and the co-owner of Circuit Clinical, formerly known as Empirican PRM. He's also very involved in volunteering through various organizations throughout the city. While I'd like to talk with him tonight about kind of those standard topics of his early startups, successes and failures, I think what would be best for us to hear is also some of his views on building sustainable businesses and what that value is to Buffalo, as well as what he's done and what he would like to do to improve Buffalo as time goes on. And with that to start, Zach, your first jump into the startup world was with Schneider Digital, a company you founded at the age of 19. Could you describe the experience for us and what were some of the key learnings you took from it?
Yeah, so Schneider Digital, Nick's here, so he spent some time with us, but we had a lot of fun. There's two Nicks actually here, but who spent some time with us then. But we learned a lot then. You know, it was a really interesting experience. I made a lot of mistakes, but we did some really great work, and I realized that I think at that time the people were probably the most important thing that, you know, ran and operated that. And going through all of that, you know, I think I came out the other side with a lot of hard knock, you know, really tough learning things, you know, who to trust. Contracts are important, you know, legal counsel's here, he would agree to that, yeah. So, and then fostering those relationships too, you know, I didn't have a good group of attorneys when I started, and have great CPAs who could help with the numbers. But all those things, you know, I've learned and met and grew into as we continue to grow, and that's a big part of what I took away from that.
Do you have any specific stories or insight, either around you seem to have contracts, people, and then just some general struggles?
Yeah, so in terms of contracts, did a lot of handshake deals then. I got burnt pretty hard on a few, unfortunately, and they were kind of the nail in the coffin at the end of it, you know, as we were growing things. But first and foremost, I wanted to make sure that people land on their feet and had jobs and were comfortable in what they were doing, and, you know, I made everyone aware. Those are tough lessons to learn, especially when you're young and you have these grandiose visions of the future in terms of, you know, where you can take things, and then just to hit a wall and be like, oh shit, I messed up. You know, like, it's a tough pill to swallow. But I swallowed it and wound up at a really great agency with Crowley Web. And from there learned a lot, you know, about how they run and operate things. And I realized that, you know, I'm not that far off.
Yeah.
You know, that what they were doing was great and they had a great process, but there are some fundamental flaws to the advertising industry and kind of what we were doing from project work ongoing, moving forward. And when I set off to do things with Greg differently, one of the things that we wanted to do was create our own clients out of that whole experience, so that it created a more sustainable agency world. So we weren't solely reliable on our clients. We would, you know, be able to foster revenue sources from things that we had a say in.
And what advice do you have for any students in the room, or for anyone who hasn't started a startup before, on how to prepare yourself for jumping into that world?
You can't. You know, like it's the same way you prepare yourself for having a child. You just do it. There's not like a magic book that is what you're gonna read and say, yeah, you're ready to do this, and I feel confident. I think the number of failures that I made and the lessons that I learned were probably what I needed to do in order to prepare myself, which is also the reason why you tend to have more than one child. You know, you make all your mistakes on the first one. By like the third, you're really good and like well off. You know? In my case, my brother, who's the fourth, is definitely the shining child of all of us. But you know, my parents took out all their problems with me first. I was their learning curve. But I think it's the same way when you go into business. You know, you have to go through it. You have to learn from mistakes. And as much as you want to learn from everyone around you, there's just unforeseen things that until you've gone through it, you don't get a comfort for, you know, how do I strategically move out of this situation and handle what I'm presented with until you've been through it.
You seem to focus a lot on that failure and strategically moving through it, but what have you found allows you to move through that to this state?
Sheer will.
Sure.
You know, I think a big part of it is you've got it inside you. You don't. I know a lot of people in this room who just have that entrepreneurial bug, right? You know, and it's something that you can't get rid of. You're born with it, and it's in you, and you foster it, and you grow it, or you don't. And that's you know, it's the difference of just individuals. You know, I'm not any better than anybody else. I feel compelled to make companies. Like, and that's it. And I've found a lot of really great people that have surrounded me to see those realities through. That's a big part of it.
So with that though, do you think that it can be learned with a mindset or any sort of techniques of moving through failure and accepting it, because you were saying that those failures are what allowed you to move forward.
Yeah, I think we see that all through time, right? I mean, look at Edison. I mean, how many versions of the filament light bulb did he do before he found one that worked? And then when, asked the question, he goes, well, I didn't fail. I found thousands of ways, not to make a filament light bulb and one that worked. That's brilliant. I think the failures are something that you should cherish and just be like, all right, I learned that. I will not do that again. And I'll find a more efficient way to do it. And that's how you create efficiencies. It's part of R&D and testing, and it's something that we're realizing right now in Roost Pierogies is, test, study the results, go back, test again, tweak something, study the results, and then, scale something along those lines. And we do that in all the businesses we're in.
So one of the things you're saying is that you can't prepare yourself, but during that time when you had the startup, were you able to surround yourself with any advisors that would be able to guide you through some of those pitfalls?
Yeah, I mean, the people you surround yourself with are the key to being successful in general, right? So, fortunately for me, I had Greg, who was, the 10 fingers of the 15 fingers of the agency. And he, gave me the freedom to do what I needed to do, but was also my checks and balance. We all need one. At home and at work. So, I mean, Greg is that for me. He keeps me focused, and at the same time, I push the envelope a little bit, and it's a good push and pull for future growth. And I think, and then when you get to the next level of things, with Ruse, when we sat down to build that model, I thought of all the operational pieces that were going to be required to build that company. And we looked at, we need someone who really is a great engineers, and we teamed with TNP Technologies, that is an incredible engineering manufacturing shop, and they can help with the engineering of all the food automation. And then we partnered with Rosina Foods, and they brought in, lots of food safety knowledge and dealing with the USDA and what your plant is going to have to look like. And we brought in a plant manager who has 30 years of experience and really understands all the little nuances of staffing and hiring people and how to create efficiencies on the floor. And we brought in a GM who rolled out Chili's and Dine for Barbecue. Those people are really important to operate and see a project through. And our legal counsel and our CPAs, all of those people add so much value and so much perspective to something that you're doing that, I'm lost without them, literally.
So that really brings up that kind of quote of, in order to lead, hire people who are smarter than you and let them going.
Always. I'm the dumbest person in our office, all day long.
So then that's actually something interesting, because we find that most people in a specific field or profession want to open up their own business, but a lot of times that kind of catch is they want to continue doing what they're doing. How do you find yourself being in the role of the actual founder, the leader? What are the differences?
So yeah, we all have that ambition, right? I want to grow an ad agency and I want just to do design all the time. Well, that's not going to happen. Be a freelancer, because then you can design all the time. But on top of that, you also wind up with all the bookwork and everything else. So you have to find a way to get. I consider it like eating. Relate everything to food, but it's also why I started a pierogi company. But when you get going, I think one of the things you look at is you say, I can do all of this right now, and we all wear a lot of hats. We're small, we can be nimble, we can do certain things. And then as you grow and you want to take on that extra challenge, you're like, that's a big opportunity. I don't know if I have the bandwidth. You have to find someone to take some of that off your plate so that you can focus and eat the main course, and they can eat everything else, and you still get everything up and running at an efficient time. Where that really plays is at scale. Right now, literally it was Greg and I when we started, and that's why we called it 15 fingers. There was 2 of us, we had 15 fingers. I was down. And then as we grew, we brought on one more person, and that helped us get to the next level and the next level. And you're 25 people in, and you're like, wow, it's crazy how much we've taken off our plate, and at the same time have consistently filled our plate back up.
Yeah.
So there's different things we need to do. One of the really exciting things is Ruse was thought out over 3 years in terms of planning and structuring and operations. And that was the first thing that I really did, was like, being that I have another company, how am I going to oversee this and not be there to run it? And that was a real startup, in my opinion, in terms of I built it as a company with an operations factor from the very beginning, and that seems to be working pretty well so far. So I'm pretty excited about how that's panning out. But that's what I'm talking about. You know, I know how much someone can take on, and then when you have to get someone else to take it off their plate and delegate and find someone better than you to do that piece of it.
And I know that's a huge problem with a lot of people. So do you have any advice or elaboration for somebody who's running a startup on just letting go and allowing others to take over responsibilities?
Yeah, you got to foster trust first. You know, I think apprentices are underappreciated. You know, having a mentor and someone that you can carry through. You know, we found a lot of that, and that's really what fostered a lot of our growth. And in trusting them, they really blossomed into some incredible talent. And there's just certain personalities that, you know, are better at delegating than others. So you have to be cognizant of that, you know, and address it accordingly. But that's a challenging thing, and it's people, which all businesses are built on. That's a very delicate thing, you know, having good HR policies and leading by example are really important.
And how did you go about setting up those HR policies and building that culture of trust?
So I think the culture of trust organically grew by just, you know, how we trusted each other and how we trusted those around us. I think that's a big part of it. The HR policies, we hired an HR company. You know, Holly Nowak, who's an incredible HR person, and had broken away and started her own company, and she had an incredible entrepreneurial attitude, and she was working with us at a company we worked with before, but we had gotten so big that we really need to control and see something of that through. She was an incredible advisor and helped with all of that. You know, that's important stuff to have those sorts of people, and those HR policies are something that I wouldn't know,
Yep.
you know, the depth of to understand, but someone like Holly is a great resource to tap into.
So in part with that, you've mentioned a lot of times bringing in advice and resources, and I know that's something with cash-strapped startups that a lot of times they avoid. So what advice do you have on deciding when to build the knowledge in-house versus when to seek out, and at what stage would a startup do that?
Who do you know? You know, who do you know? I mean, who do you know that can help? You know, we knew Holly. We knew that she was great at HR, and we knew that, like, if we gave her the opportunity to start her own company and said, hey, you can use us as your first model to get going, that was a great opportunity to leverage, and she gave us a great rate out of the gate, and we helped her start her own company. And then in doing that, she's found a lot more clients through us and created a sustainable company of her own. You know, we have no equity stake in that, but we get value from what she brings to the table, and that's probably the most important thing.
So I'm going to backtrack a bit to
Yeah.
Crowley Web, because one of the things that you'd stated is your value of just, you tried to move through the world and then you had your time there. What do you see as that value of working in the industry and learning about it before setting off again?
You know, Crowley Web was the textbook ad agency. I mean, you could pick up, I mean, if you saw the first episode of Mad Men where they walk through the building and they show you, like, we have a traffic department, we have the media department, we have the designers, and the art designer and the director sit in the same room together, and this is how stuff, that is Crowley Web's, you know, model to a T. Less martinis and smoking, but, you know, that's...
Less, not none.
Yeah, not none, but less. And I also learned that, you know, they created a great culture there, and they're just brilliant people in their own right, and they ran a great creative department. They really held that at the pinnacle of what they do. And, you know, I learned a lot of things to do there and what not to do there. I mean, they had their own struggles. And it was great to see other people struggle and be like, okay, I get this. Like, it wasn't just me, you know, everyone deals with, you know, business is controlled chaos in a lot of regards, you know, it's controlling, and you can't control if someone's gonna get sick or their parent dies, or if, you know, someone's dealing with really intense things that you have to deal with. You have to be supportive, you have to be family, you have to be there. You know, that was a culture that Crowley did well. You know, I think In leaving that though, what I saw was Crowley carried a huge amount of overhead, and every year had to go back out and fill the docket of everything to make it work. And I just thought about that as like, that is a horrible business model. Like, I don't ever want to, do that. And when Greg said, let's start an agency, I said, I don't want to start an agency. That business model sucks. I said, what I do want to do is build companies, and I think advertising is a very important aspect to almost every business out there. I mean, there are certain businesses where advertising is not important, right? You own a power grid, great. Everyone needs power. You don't need to advertise it. You're going to dig a gas well, awesome. Not really necessary to have a great advertising campaign for that. But almost everything that we're involved in, and we learned a lot about different verticals and categories, and we got experience and knowledge, like really deep knowledge into so many of our clients, and we get really strategic in working with them. So we really got to feel out a lot of different companies and dip our toes in and really understand, like, what companies do we like the most, why do we like them, what's the benefit of working with them, what are good business models, before we went and built our own. And then in building our own, we leveraged the ad agency as equity into those along with cash, and we show the value of something we've already built to build the next thing. And at the same time, we create jobs and more sustainability, and then that revenue flows back to the agency, but not just for a project, for the life of that client. And we're tied at the hip with that company moving forward. And it allows us to give up more and more equity in that company to get it in the hands of the right people to see it to the next levels, and to still, at the same time, retain a relationship and an ownership stake in how that company grows. Which, we all know the toughest thing about what we do is, the clients that we work with in this particular industry. And it can also be the greatest thing you do. A bad client will kill you, literally put your company under. And a great client will bring in 5 more, just by the ability of getting to produce the best quality work. And we've been very lucky with great clients. So.
And I liked how you were discussing just how much of the industry you were able to understand from your position, and you described to me yesterday as being almost an autodidact. So you really showed the importance of trying to learn as much about your industry as possible before jumping in.
Yep.
What advice would you have for people in any role without their industry and company on how to develop that depth of knowledge while working in a non-startup environment?
Google's a good place to start. Literally, it's amazing what you can find online. With the food industry, we had a lot of really unique insight information from certain softwares and technologies that gave us market insight. But we had started working with the English pork pie company and saw what they were doing, and it's manufacturing process. It's one manufacturing line, you can swap out some fillings and produce it as, like, at the end of the day, it's an English pork pie. Pierogies, there you go. That's something Buffalo can get behind, right? We have a bunch of Polish people here. This is fantastic. So it was just a great vehicle. The manufacturing process made sense to us. I had a friend from grammar school who was making in his kitchen, and they were delicious. And then over 3 years, it was really 3 years of just really intense research and digging and reading and reading and reading and reading and reading. I mean, I bought every book on food manufacturing on Amazon, and I read every one of them. Some really intense, food safety and HACCP plans research, and how to write an SSOP, and how to optimize your manufacturing production lines, and what sort of packaging materials you use, and when to use them, and what's the difference between a 4 mil plastic for a freezer and a 2 mil plastic, and how long is your shelf life going to last, and who are the resources that I need to talk to in order to have my scientific testing done and create my labels. And I realized that when I got into it and started building the factory, that I had to work with Homeland Security to create an entire intentional food contamination plan. Stuff you wouldn't have guessed when you're hanging out with your buddy going, pierogi seems like fun. There's some serious research in there, and you have to learn everything you can possibly learn. So I start with Google, and then I start buying marketing research and everything else, and Greg's always like, why do you spend so much time doing this? It's like, just so I can understand everything that I have to endeavor with, you know? And it, you know, it puts a lot of hours on the books, but it's time that, you know, I spend all night just reading this stuff and eating it up. And recently got involved with Empirican, which is now Circuit Clinical, and had a great resource there through Dr. Irfan Khan, who was one of the founders, and just literally gobbled up everything I could about how to bring drugs to market and trials and like what it takes to do that, and talking to people, the researchers, and going to the trade shows in Philly and sitting down and talking to everyone at the booth and being like, how are you changing the industry? What are you doing different? This is what you're doing. We spent days just, and he's even more than I am. He just consumes, and the two of us just went to town and learned an entire industry as much as possible, and then strategically think about like, how do we change this industry from the top down? And how much money is it going to take to do that? Is it 5 million? Is it 50 million? Let's go out and get it. You know, and then radically change how things are done.
All right, to move back, can you tell us a little bit about the start of 15 Fingers and how those early days were?
So Greg always says that I got him fired from Crowley Web. He kept we would go to lunch and he'd be like, you ready to start your own company yet? You ready to start your own company yet? And the day that I come down, I was like, hey, I quit, and I told him you're coming with me. He was like, what the hell? So that day we went and we started an LLC, and we had a relationship in New York City at Estee Lauder, and a crazy idea, and we were like, well, let's just go pitch them. And so we did, and we were up and running. We got into a contract to do a bunch of localized banner ad campaigns, co-branded with Macy's and Estee Lauder with Gift with Purchase, which is their bread and butter. And that got us off the ground. And then the New York Philharmonic, Beer Foam Slippers, and we did the winter campaigns and seasonal stuff. And at the time, it was just the two of us. We were working with like 15 contractors all over the country. There was a lot of instant messaging. My thumb was never stronger. I was like typing away like crazy, and it was really fun. And we just, there was something kind of, we really enjoy the vibe, because as it gets bigger and it grows and grows, it's still fun, but it's different than it is when there's two guys just sitting on a couch going, holy crap, we're doing this. It's like, and then, 3 years later, you're like, there's 25 of us and we're still doing this. It's crazy. It's like there's so much more stuff to deal with in a day, but that's how we started. We just took a risk and we went and did it. Start somewhere.
Even to reiterate, though, you took a risk, but it had years of knowledge and back planning behind that.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
Knowing that I had years of, failures and mistakes and successes before that, and then all the stuff that I learned at Crowley, which was just, great. And I had wonderful mentors there too that, still to this day are really awesome people. So, breaking away and going to do that, I couldn't be happier. And we saw a lot of success in those early days.
And then I really wanted to delve into, you had some great advice about building a sustainable business and what that means for Buffalo and what that means for an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so you'd be surprised, I get a lot of business plans across my desk, right? A lot of people are like, hey, look at this business, can you find money for me? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll take a look at it. It doesn't mean I can find the money, but if it's a great idea and I know someone who has an interest, sure, put it in front of them. But a lot of their businesses are like, we're not going to make any money for like 3 years, and then we're going to make $1 billion, and we're just going to exit, and everything's going to be great. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works at all. Awesome if it does, and that opportunity presents itself to you. But the reality is, if you build a sustainable business that is fostered on great people, and you make them happy, and you can make $1, and you're spending 50 cents, all right, great. There's something there, right? And that over time, if you keep that same philosophy, I learned that a lot from my father too. If you build a good company, there's value in that, and there's a sustainable job for someone who will give it his all or her all to be part of it. And And what we did is, we weren't out to become multimillionaires. We were out to say, hey, let's take as little as we can humanly live off of and continue to take that, no matter how much money we make, for the next 10 to 15 years. And every dollar we make above that, put it into starting the next company and roll it back into investing in this, or helping to get our employees to another level in their lives. There are employees that our company would probably make more than we do, and that's fine. What we're building is so much bigger than that, and they know that too, and that's awesome. Like, that's what I really love, and that level of sustainability and excitement is something that we really thrive on as we continue to do this.
And what advice do you have for founders of startups to build that sustainability in early on?
You have to model it from the very beginning. Our business plan for Ruse showed, there's 3 years of losses, and then on year 3, we make some money. We don't hit the jackpot and go crazy. It's a very sustainable business, and it's based on what's realistic. Do I think I can really hit that number? Yeah, I way underestimated what I could possibly do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do that so I can make that plan not only a reality, but blow it away. When you go into a bank and you show them that plan, they're like, really, Zach? I don't know, that doesn't look like it's something we want to invest in. I said, yeah, I know, but it's honest. That's something that I can build, and I know in my gut I can build and see a return on, and that's the return I guarantee you that you can see. Can I do better than that? Hell yeah. I guarantee, I'm not going to guarantee I can do better than that, but I can guarantee that I can do this. And I think there's some honesty in having gone through it so many times, where you're just like, listen, this is the reality of what's real, and this is, what it's really going to take to get to the next level. And in doing that, you can really start to exceed your goals. And I think that's where you start to see real success.
So it just really seems to be about being honest and realistic with what can happen, no pie in the sky vision.
Yeah, and I think
accepting that.
Yeah, well, I think too many people, hear about the Michael Jordans of the business world, right? The Facebooks and the Twitters, and these guys who started it and all of a sudden became multi-billionaires. Everyone knows about them because there are very few of them. Everyone else in the world is still making a dollar somehow. There's a lot of room to build sustainable businesses that can collaborate and show value and still be a real viable business. And if you build a real viable business, it's of value to someone else. So at some point, you might say, I'm done with this business, but this business makes money. I'm ready to retire. At that point, exit from your business. That might be 40 years. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's just no get rich quick scheme out there. If it happens, awesome. It's like hitting the lottery. If you buy a lotto ticket and you win $1 billion, great. You have the same odds of starting Facebook tomorrow. But if you want to open a coffee shop that pulls down a real good salary and you can raise a family on, that you can do.
So what I'd like to go forward with, especially since you used the word collaborate, is some of your plans for the future.
Yeah, so I made a Facebook post, and it got a lot of attention. We've been looking at space for 15 fingers to grow into, and we had an idea of what happens if we don't fill the whole space. And I thought, I don't know, maybe there's people interested out there who would like the same amenities that we have and are freelancers. And I started talking to some individuals, and I think in the freelance community and the creative community in Buffalo, there are some really, really talented people. Just some of the most talented people in the country, without a doubt, and who do work all over the country. And some of them are just 1-2-man teams, that are just doing their thing. And every now and again, when they're sitting at their house doing some work, they stop and they're like, I'm hungry for some creative interaction and the collisions that happen in the workplace, or people that I can bounce ideas off of. And we said, here we are with 25,000 square feet. Can we create something like that and still give people instead of an open work environment. Not that, you know, a place like Dig is not right for the right person, but I think some people still need a quiet space to retreat to in an office, but want the opportunity to have other really creative, brilliant people around them to just help foster that in themselves. And so we thought of the idea of a creative collaborative, you know, and sharing that space in some regards where people can still retreat to their own office and get done what they need to get done without being talked over, or someone on the phone sitting next to them on the desk, but at the same time, you know, can go to the lunchroom or the bar and sit down and say, I'm stuck on this is what I'm working with, and just get a myriad of ideas from everyone else's perspective. And at the same time, fill it with shared secretaries and sound stages and, you know, bars and rooftop decks and patios and you know, put in a printer and bring in an IT company that can help support everyone's servers, and bring in, you know, a videographer who can help produce, you know, document what's going on, and bring in, you know, a creative designer, an art director, a media buyer. Like, you know, let's assemble all of that and see what happens. And it seemed like, you know, it resonated pretty well. We got an interesting amount of response in one night. So it was, you know, we'll see where it goes. I think it's still young. You know, the idea initially was just to fill it with our agency. So, and we're still set on, you know, making sure that our agency has its autonomy within that too, because it's really important that I allow the people that we've created the family with to continue to stay a family too, and not disrupt that. So there's a delicate balance of, you know, where we go as we move forward, and that's a big thing that, you know, I have to be cognizant of.
I think you got an idea behind you, because I certainly don't pass any creativity bars, but I still want to work there.
Yeah, I know. Well, it helps when you make it look like the way we're planning on making it look, and it helps having a father who's a developer and an amazing architect. So.
That does help.
Yeah, well, sometimes.
So the last question that I've got before I'm going to open it up to audience questions is Eben's classic that I absolutely love, especially coming from what you've got in the vision. If Buffalo is to succeed, it needs more of what?
I think Buffalo needs more collaboration across everything, you know. We sat around all looking at each other going, what are we going to do with this big tower? You know, it's empty. It's literally the center of the hub of like what spins the city out from downtown. And, you know, I look around and say, we have about 20 exceptional developers in the city. Who are all really, really good at what they do. And they bring their personalities, which make it challenging, but at the same time, if they sit down and collaborate on something like that, that's a project we can get done. And we don't have to go to an outside resource to come and save us. And at the same time, we keep our fate in our own hands, and it's something that we do at a level of quality because it is our city, it is our downtown, and it's something that, you know, our generations of children, when they grow up and live in the city, will turn to and say, look at what my father and his friends put together and developed there. And I think there's so many other opportunities like that, just across everything, you know, healthcare systems and everything else. You know, there's so much more money left on the table if we start collaborating and working together. And, you know, it just branches into all of these big environments in town in terms of, you know, how can we work together as opposed to be so competitive all the time.
Thank you. Opening it up to audience questions. There we go.
Hi, Zach.
Hi, Eddie.
I've got two questions, actually, if you don't mind.
Hit me.
The first question is, when you think of your first business and you think of the clients that you were able to say yes to and clients that you said no to, what were some criteria that you had that really allowed you to stand strong in those yeses and nos?
So that was one of the areas where I made a lot of mistakes. And I think I said yes to everything because all of a sudden I was, you know, 20-something years old and carrying all this overhead, and I just, like, what happens if the work doesn't come in tomorrow? And I need to take this job now. And I think what I do now is I say no. That there's certain jobs that are a good fit for us, and there aren't, and there's some that aren't. And saying no is probably one of the best things you can do in order to continue to grow, right? So what we look for at the agency now is, will whatever we do turn out a really great product? Can we get the best product possible out of this particular client? And do their vision align with ours? Do they have the budget in order to make that happen? Do they have a timeline that makes sense for what our existing workflow is in the shop right now? And at the end of the day, the reason why those are the core benchmarks is if one of those things doesn't work and the client's unhappy, or like comes back and bastardizes the work, we don't wind up with a client who's gonna refer us anywhere. We don't wind up with a portfolio piece that we wanna show off or that we're even proud of. And no matter how much money we've made, we have really nothing to show for it. So I mean, that's why at the agency, we say yes and no into certain projects. I'd say now we turn down probably a good 70 to 80% of the work that comes in through us right now.
That's pretty awesome. That you
Some days,
that you're able to stand true to your vision in that way.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a lot of really great people who help guide the direction for where we're headed on that now too. It's not just me anymore.
Yeah, thanks. So the second question is, you talked about sort of really knowing when to pull in other people for expertise and knowing sort of when to empty your plate. And how do you balance the skills that you have and like what you really love with what you want to learn and also like what you're really good at?
Whoa. Yeah, I think you're taking on too much when you start making mistakes, right? That's when you desperately need someone. Like stuff is slipping through the cracks. That's when you've already needed someone and you have hesitated too long to not get them. What I thought I was good at and what I wanted to do has drastically changed, and I think the creativity that I really appreciated in design, I just found there were people much better at design than I was, right? And then I found there were people much better at programming than I was. But I did all of them, and there are definitely people better writers than I am. I got spellers in particular. But like those sorts of things are things that I had to do, but I knew there were people better than myself. And what I have found that I enjoy doing is that being creative and strategic in business as a whole is kind of what drives me now, and it may not have been the case when I started. That was not really what I got into it for, but that's where I've really found the most ability to be strategic and creative in what I do.
Next question.
Easy crowd.
So I have a two-part question. You've touched on a little bit that your strengths are either raising money or selling. Can you talk a little bit about your mindset for both and the steps you take when you have a project that you want to sell and get funded?
Yeah, so raising money and selling are definitely in my wheelhouse in terms of strength. The raising money part is just because I know a lot of people, right? And there's people out there who have really unique passions, and I'm a connector. When someone says, "Hey, I got this really unique idea," I'm like, I know 3 people who might want to sit down and talk that idea out with you. And it's a lot easier to sell something to someone when you know it so intimately because you built it, right? I couldn't go out and sell. I tell people who, I'm gonna put it this way, when people come to me through the agency and they say, "I've got this awesome drink and it's like gonna change the world, here, try it," and I try it and I'm like, I will literally kill your product with my advertising because this drink sucks. I will be the #1 killer. I'll go out and I'll advertise it and everyone's gonna learn it's not what you say it is. There has to be an honesty there, and what I'm selling is not make-believe, it's something that I honestly feel passionately about, and I come from a place of, I've been through it, I understand that, I'm reasonable and understand other people's sides and arguments on things, but, if you don't fully believe in what you're selling, you can't sell it. And I really do believe in what I'm selling right now.
No, that was just basically the sales.
Yeah, sales and then what
Next question.
Everybody,
Hi.
how do you talk about how you balance in the beginning or now, well, now that you have kids, your, personal life and work life, being an entrepreneur, because that can be a struggle.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I do the best I can, right? There are nights like tonight where I won't see my kids till they're asleep. I'll see them tomorrow. Fortunately for me, I have a wonderful wife who's very, very forgiving, and understands that. Listen, what we're trying to do is so much bigger than us, and it's hard for her too because, like the companies are all making money, but we're not. We're not bringing it home. We're reinvesting it into things, and that's a tough thing for people to do. Like, you have to be pretty comfortable with people think you start a company and you can drive around in a Benz and you're the boss now and all that stuff. But that is not at all the case. Like, you have to basically take a vow of poverty to just do what you're going to do because you're going to reinvest it. And someday when it's all said and done, you've built this great value and all this stuff, and hopefully it all works out where you have that, right? But that's not what I was ever in it for. I was in it for something that will go on for generations in this town and that my kids can work at someday and be part of. And, that the people that we've built this company with will go on and grow it much bigger than I ever envisioned after I'm gone. That's all I want to see happen. I don't care about the rest. We live in Buffalo. That's kind of the great thing about starting companies here. We can do this and live very modest lives that create so much more value for everyone around us. Greg and I started as 2 people, and across all the companies now, there's 60 or to 80 people. I don't even know. That's the thing. That's awesome. We've created jobs that aren't crap jobs. They're even our restaurant workers. We started a 401k program, and we've free meals, paid vacation time, and $12.50 an hour. That's not bad for working in a fast food joint. You can't get those sorts of things, and that's what we set off to do. We didn't go into it with the ambition of being multimillionaires. We just said, let's build something awesome that's bigger than us. And does my family suffer a little bit sometimes in terms of me not being there? Yeah, they do. It's tough with the kids. They don't get to see me often. My oldest I take to school every morning, but when I'm there, I'm there. I turn the phone off. I'm there on the weekends, and I try to get home in time for dinner every night. Unfortunately, it doesn't always be the case, but you got to learn when to turn it off, and then when you get to work, you flip that switch and you go right back into work mode.
Last question. I saw him in the back first.
So when you're small, it's and you're in the B2B space, I've been seeing it's a lot easier to get into small businesses with really small 2 to 3, 4 employees. But just recently I had a scenario where I was going into a 25-person company and it was just me and my business. And I was talking to the CEO, and one of the biggest things that he brought up is, it sounds like that we have a service that we can utilize, but what happens if you're driving home and you get hit by a car and you're relying on you? How do you combat that? And that's this one question that's really difficult for me to understand, really sell myself on, because yes, I can get hit by a car if you're relying on me, really not much I can do, but I'm not at that point yet. I can hire a second employee or just me right now.
Tell me you have insurance. Listen, that's why they created insurance, right? At the end of the day, yeah, we all get hit by a car. Greg worries all the time because I'm a total mess, I drive fast, I eat poorly, and I'm take out an insurance policy on it, so we did. That's called key man insurance in case anyone's looking. There's a person that you know, is integral to the continued growth of your company, and it's good to have an insurance policy on that person. I am worried in the middle of the night and keep one eye open for Greg sneaking in, but, you know, outside of that, we're good. You know, I think, listen, be realistic. Be like, hey, there's a risk in doing that, but if you want my services and you think it can really add value, then I'll be there for you. And if I disappear tomorrow, I will leave you with an insurance policy that will cover it, you know. Let's approach it from that angle. And create redundancies in your company as you start to generate revenue. That's what we do.
All right, we do have time for one more question. Oh, first hand up is also in the back, making me get my steps up.
I don't think I need the mic, but in your experience, what makes a perfect client or an exceptional client?
What makes the perfect client or the exceptional client? I think having a client who respects what you do from an entire, you know, really understands the value of what you bring to the table, right? They've seen previous work, you've proven yourself. They allow you to do your work without micromanaging, but provide valuable insight to curb and point the direction of where you go. And then it's up to you to be exceptional, right? And follow through with that. But if you don't have a client who just respects what you do at the very beginning and trusts you, I mean, trust is a very important aspect of that, you're pretty much destined for failure. Because you'll get micromanaged, you'll get absurd changes, you'll go way over budget, the scope will get out of control, people will get hot, you know, it's a really complicated thing to manage at that level. But, you know, trust, respect, you know, it's a relationship like anything else, right? It's people. And if you don't trust and respect the people that you work with, yeah, you're doomed. So you have, you know, an asshole who comes in and says, hey, I'm going to pay you all this money to do this awesome project. And you just look at the money and you don't realize that there's an asshole handing you money. You're in trouble. That asshole's going to shit on you. Is that the answer?
Yeah, because we have a couple of announcements, but this concludes the speaking. So first I'm going to have a brief speaker come up because we didn't have him in the beginning to tell you guys about Startup Weekend.
All right, thanks. First off, great job, Zach. Thanks, man. Go Red Raiders. Thanks, Francis. Startup Weekend. Is anyone familiar with Startup Weekend? Awesome. Anyone else that isn't, listen up and clear your schedule for October 21st to the 23rd. We kick off 40th and Northview. So Startup Weekend is a 54-hour-long event. People come here. It's going to be held here. You pitch that idea that you've had, kind of like we heard earlier, a 60-second pitch, and then teams form around the best ideas. You work all weekend long, present the judges on Sunday, and hopefully we get some startups that start during the weekend. We've had actually a few. I know Heads Up is probably one of the better examples. They're over next door at Z8. So if you've had that idea for a startup, or maybe you're a developer, designer, marketing person, come and listen to the pitches, join a team, have a lot of fun that weekend, and go from there. Buffalo.startupweekend.org. If you have any questions, I'll be right after.
Finally, just to close off, I really just want to reiterate for you guys that we're very happy to be here, Sean and I, for the new era of Startup Grind. And our main focus is going to be exactly that, to be that watering hole, to bring people together and also funnel them towards the other organizations that are available in the city, because we know that we have a lot of the same faces to events, and I'm glad that we have a lot of new faces today, but most of the city doesn't always recognize a lot of the resources that have cropped up over the last 5 years for entrepreneurialism and what we have, and we'd really like to act as that connector. So the one thing that I'll ask is that if you have a passion for Buffalo, if you have a passion for entrepreneurship and you're interested in working with us, if you're an organization, you can talk with Sean if you're interested in being a sponsor, or if you have somebody willing to be on the advisory team. And then if you want to be on the specific Startup Grind team, where we'll be working on reaching out to universities, isolating and finding somebody who may want to do a startup, making our event better, and then following up and trying to funnel those people towards our organizations to have more and more startups that can bring Buffalo back organically, please contact us and let us know. And then, of course, after this, if you have any interest in Government 2.0, we have our little panelists right here to speak to, as well as Zachary Schneider. And of course, just as Sean said, come back to Dig. It's an amazing space, and we hope to see you guys again next time. Thank you.